Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi were joined by fellow House and Senate Democrats to announce their party's new economic agenda called A Better Deal. This event was held in Berryville, Virginia.
We could use water. Got any water? All right, guys. Warren, Holland, Pelosi, Klobuchar, Lujan,
Right on the line.
Schumer. Okay, Warner. Okay, Mark? Okay. We are back. So, good afternoon, Berryville. It's great to be here. I want to thank the good people of Berryville for working with us. And I want to thank everyone for leaving the city for a few hours to this beautiful, beautiful spot to join us here today. Let me pay it a high compliment. It looks like parts of New York State. Sorry, Mark. Okay. Now, as I travel New York State, from upstate rural Republican areas like Sodus Bay, where I was Friday, to suburban Long Island, to inner city Bronx, I find one thing in common. Average families feel they're being pushed around by large economic forces and are losing that traditional American faith in the future. Too many families in America feel like the rules of the economy are rigged against them. They feel like they're getting a raw deal. And they're right. They're almost powerless to change them. We are here today to tell the people of Berryville and the working people of America, someone has your back. American families deserve a better deal. So this country works for everyone again, not just the elites, not just the special interests. Today, Democrats start presenting that better deal to the American people. Now, there used to be a basic bargain in this country that if you worked hard, played by the rules, you could own a home, afford a car, put your kids through college, take a modest vacation every year, while putting enough away for a comfortable retirement. In the late part of the 20th century, millions of Americans achieved this solid middle-class lifestyle. I should know, I grew up, son of an exterminator, in that America. But things have changed. Today's working Americans are justified in having greater doubts about the future than almost any generation since the Depression. Corporate interests, the super wealthy, are allowed to spend unlimited, undisclosed amounts of money on campaigns and lobbying so they can protect their special deals in Washington. And for too long, government has played along, tilting the economic playing field in favor of the wealthy and powerful, taking the burden off them and putting it on the backs of hardworking Americans. The result? An economy that has created enormous accumulated wealth for wealth holders while producing less work and less pay for workers. Incomes and wages have flatlined while everyday costs have skyrocketed. And when you lose elections, as we did in 2014 and 2016, you don't flinch, you don't blink. You look in the mirror and ask, what did we do wrong? The number one thing we did wrong is not present a strong, bold economic agenda to working Americans so that their hope for the future might return again. Democrats have too often hesitated from directly and unflinchingly taking on the misguided policies that got us here. So much so that too many Americans don't know what we stand for. Not after today. President Trump campaigned on a populist platform, talking to working people. That's why he won. But as soon as he got into office, he abandoned them, making alliance with the powerful, special interest, Koch brother-dominated hard right wing of the Republican Party, which appeals to the very wealthy, not the working people, leaving a vacuum on economic issues. We Democrats are going to fill that vacuum. Democrats will show the country we are the party on the side of working people. And that we stand for three simple things. First, we're going to increase people's pay. Second, we're going to reduce their everyday expenses. And third, we're going to provide workers the tools they need for the 21st century economy. Simply put, what do Democrats stand for? A better deal for working people. Higher wages, lower costs, and the tools for a 21st century economy. Over the next several months, Democrats will lay out a series of policies that, if enacted, will make these three things a reality. We've already proposed creating jobs with $1 trillion infrastructure plan, raising wages by lifting the minimum wage to $15, and lowering household costs by providing paid family leave and sick leave. Today we announced three new policies to advance our goals, and in the coming weeks and months, you'll hear a lot more. Right now, there's nothing to stop vulture capitalists from egregiously raising the price of life-saving drugs without any justification. We're going to fight for rules to stop prescription drug price gouging and demand that drug companies justify price increases to the public. And we're going to push for empowering Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices for seniors. Right now, our antitrust laws are designed to allow huge corporations to merge, padding the pockets of investors, but sending costs skyrocketing for everything from cable bills and airline tickets to food and health care. Nothing bothers average folks more than the cable bill or airline fee that just keeps going up because there are so few competitors in the industry, sometimes only one or two. Old-fashioned capitalism has broken down to the detriment of consumers. Adam Smith has lost his way amidst these big corporations. Large corporations, in too many instances, merge for their own interests, so they, not the consumer, can dictate prices, the quantity and the quality of goods. We're going to fight to allow regulators to break up big companies if they're hurting consumers, and to make it harder for companies to merge if it reduces competition. And third, right now, millions of unemployed or underemployed people, particularly those without a college degree, could be brought back into the labor force or retrained to secure full-time, higher-paying work. We propose giving employers, particularly small businesses, a large tax credit to train workers for unfilled jobs, with a requirement to hire that worker at a good wage once the training is complete. This will have particular resonance in smaller cities and rural areas which have experienced an exodus of young people who aren't trained for the jobs that are there. Now, in future weeks, we'll offer additional ideas, from rebuilding rural America to fundamentally changing our trade laws to benefit workers, not multinational corporations. Now, we know that now we're in the minority in both houses of Congress. We can't delude anyone that this Congress will begin passing our priorities tomorrow. But we have to start presenting our vision for the country's future. And we must start rallying the American people to support our ideas. This is the start of a new version for the party, one strongly supported by House and Senate Democrats. As you can see, I'm flanked by members of the Democratic Party from both houses, folks from very different states with sometimes differing points of view. The fact that we're all standing here together today sends a powerful statement. Democrats are unified. Now, there's been a debate about whether Democrats should spend all our energy focusing on the diverse Obama coalition or the blue-collar American in the heartland who voted for Trump. It's a false choice. There doesn't have to be a division. In fact, there must not be a division. The vision we're laying out unites both coalitions and unifies the Democratic Party. It will have a larger, stronger appeal to Americans of all economic levels and all political stripes. It will appeal to the young woman who just graduated from college in Los Angeles, the factory worker in Akron who's now only making $11 an hour, and the single mom in Buffalo cleaning toilets on minimum wage. The Republican Party seemingly exists to work on behalf of the wealthy and the corporate interests, furthering their dream of lower taxes at the very top, fewer consumer protections, unfettered access and influence for an already favored few. But we know what America looks like when those policies rule today. Prior to the New Deal, government sat silently as corporations and wealthy speculators wrecked the economy. We were beset by panics, recessions, depressions every few decades. It was a time when American workers were alone against the raging sea of economic forces beyond their control. We Democrats are offering a better deal, a phrase that intentionally evokes the New Deal, because we can afford to go back to those times. We cannot afford to go back to those times. The American people deserve an economy that works for them, not for the powerful. A better deal is not just our slogan. It is our mission. It's about reorienting government to work on behalf of people and families. It's not going to be the work of only one Congress. It shouldn't be the work of only one party. We welcome any Republicans willing to join us on these issues. There's an American imperative and a moral imperative to do what we're doing. If that torch, held by the lady in the harbor of the city in which I live, that symbol of optimism and hope for the future, starts flickering, it's a different America that no one will like. Now, last month I went to a Yankees game, and I sat where I usually do. We are not completely united. Last month I went to a Yankees game and sat where I usually do in the right field grandstand. The two people sitting next to me were wearing proud to be deplorable t-shirts. They were Teamsters from Yonkers. We talked the whole game. They weren't really sure of Donald Trump. They didn't know what he stood for. And being Teamsters, were well aware of the awful conditions of our roads. And they were beginning to worry that he couldn't get an infrastructure bill done. But they voted for Trump because they thought he might change things. Now, they're worried he won't, and he can't. They're worried that the potholed roads they drive their trucks on will never get fixed, that Donald Trump was not the change agent or the champion of the working man he claimed to be. We Democrats can answer the calls of millions of Americans like these folks I sat next to by offering them a better deal. And now it's my honor to introduce my partner in this great endeavor, someone who's done a great job for many years, my friend for many more years even than that, Nancy Pelosi.
Good afternoon, everyone in Berryville and Berryville and Clark County and in Virginia. and in Virginia. It's so wonderful to be here with our colleagues from the House and from the Senate. I see an Orioles fan there. I used to root for the Orioles before I was rooting for the Giants, since we're talking about sports. But when we are in Virginia, and Senator Warner makes this point all the time, we are on sacred ground. Here we are in a state that produced so many patriots who signed the Declaration of Independence, and in doing so established that we were independent and that we'd be a democracy. They pledged their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor. It's also a state where we finally ended the Revolutionary War, sacred ground. And it is a place that recognizes that to honor the vows of our founders, to have our democracy be strong, we must have a strong middle class in our country. The middle class is the backbone of our democracy. It simply is. And so when the middle class, as the distinguished Democratic leader of the Senate has said, when that stagnation of wages sets in, that is a stagnation also of our community and of the country that we are. So, essential to the success of the middle class is the financial stability of America's working families. And essential to that are bigger paychecks to create demand, to inject demand into the economy, to help create jobs and grow the economy for everyone. This connection between financial stability, a strong middle class, and our democracy's strength is a very direct one, and I want to recognize that in this great state of Virginia. That is why today Democrats are unveiling an ambitious and aggressive new economic agenda and a bold new promise to America's working families. From the heartland, these members are from the heartland, but to the suburbs, to the cities, Democrats are offering a better deal, better jobs, better wages, a better future. A better deal is founded on strong values that we share, strong values fueled by fresh ideas. In the House, it has been through many months of discussion and engagement in our caucus with the leadership of our DPCC co-chairs, Sherry Bustos of Illinois, David Cicilline of Rhode Island, and Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York. And with the leadership of our DCCC chairman, Ben Ray Lujan, I thank them for their leadership in all of this. From them and from the members of the Senate here gathered, distinguished members, you will hear what Democrats have heard from the American people across the country. Democrats know a better deal for hardworking men and women demands bigger, braver thinking to create jobs and raise incomes for American workers by creating good-paying jobs for 10 million more Americans in the next 5 years. We have set a goal to lower the cost of living, as the leader mentioned, for American families by taking unprecedented action to lower the cost of prescription drugs, very, very important, and by cracking down on the monopolies that raise cost for our families and hurt competition. To give every American, this is three: one, to create jobs; two, to lower and with bigger paychecks, to lower the cost of living; and third, to give every American the tools to succeed in the 21st century. We want every family in America to know that they and their children have a place, a strong place in the economy of the 21st century, with massive new commitment to apprenticeships, lifetime learning, paid on-the-job training. The list goes on. We have the proposal. Today, we're on the road. It's so wonderful to be here in Berryville. We are on the road, a state, as I mentioned earlier, with a rich history of our founders and the dream that they proposed of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We must honor their commitment to that. Next, Democrats will take it on the road. We're on the road here, we're starting here, and now we will take it on the road to engage in conversation with the American people, because this is not just about telling them what we're advocating. It's about listening to their concerns and how we shape this and refine it as we go forward. The South, the past 6 months, I agree with the leader, have exposed the toxic special interest priorities at the core of the GOP agenda. The American people deserve better. A better deal is exactly what Democrats are fighting for, to give the economic power back into the hands of the American people. And so, as we go forward, we do so from the origins of our country, where our patriarch of our country, George Washington, cautioned as he left office to beware of political parties that are at war with their own government. We don't want to be at war with anyone. We want to reach out in a bipartisan way to rebuild the infrastructure of America, to increase our paychecks, to lower the cost for families, to do so in a way that prepares every family to be assured that their children have a place in the economy and the America of the future. And with that, I'm very pleased to yield to the distinguished gentleman from Maryland. I'm not sure he's an Orioles fan. He may be a Nats fan. That's up to him to decide. But sports, of course, is a unifying thing for us. We all forget our differences or amplify them when it comes to choosing teams. In any event, a very distinguished gentleman from Maryland, the chairman of the Senate Committee, Chris Van Hollen.
Thank you, Leader Pelosi. And we're for baseball from the Potomac River to the great city of Baltimore. And let me just say to all of you, and it's great, I will say to my friend Mark Warner, for those of you who are Marylanders, it is a great sacrifice to cross the Potomac River into the state of Maryland, but into the state of Virginia. I'm glad to be here with everybody, especially on this important occasion. I want to thank all of you for joining together to focus on the issues that are top of mind for the American people. How can we get a better deal for hardworking families? How can we get a better deal for small businessmen and small businesswomen who don't have high-priced lobbyists in Washington like the big multinational corporations do? How can we get a better deal for middle-class families and those who are working very hard to join the middle class? In short, how do we get a better deal for America? And I want to thank Leader Schumer and Leader Pelosi and all the Democrats and all of you and people we've been hearing from around the country to bring us together to focus on that question. Because people need to know not only what we're fighting against, they need to know what we are fighting for in the United States Congress. And our Democratic senators and House members have been traveling to every part and every corner of their states and their districts. They've been listening to the American people from cities to suburbs to rural areas. And we're all hearing the same thing, that too many Americans are feeling squeezed between flat or sinking paychecks on the one hand and rising costs and prices on the other. Too many people are working harder than ever but feel like they're on a treadmill or falling behind. And that's what brings us together today, because it's not enough to just identify the problem. It's not enough to simply analyze and empathize. We have to put forward bold solutions. And that is exactly what the Better Deal plan is all about. And we are going to be unveiling the specifics of it because the American people deserve to hear what we intend to do, not only what we are talking about in general terms. And so I want to thank everybody who's been part of this effort, which has really been the result of listening to the American people. And as we take this plan around the country, we'll continue to listen to them and get feedback. But remember, our goal is to focus on how we answer that question that is on the minds of the American people. How do we get a better deal for America? I'm now very pleased to turn this over to a good friend of mine, a terrific member of Congress from New Mexico. He heads up the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, Ben Ray Lujan.
Ben Ray.
I'll tell you, it's great to be with everyone today. Good afternoon, everyone. To have friends from both sides of the United States Capitol from all over America gathered today at the welcoming of great friends here in Virginia. Senator Warner, thanks for hosting us and bringing us together in Berryville as well. Like so many others across the country, my family's story is rooted in hard work and public service, and each generation doing better than the last. On my dad's side of the family, my grandfather was a union laborer on the Manhattan Project. My mom's dad was a union carpenter and a soldier who served during World War II, all while my grandmothers raised the family. My mom, she worked in the local school district. My father was a union iron worker before he entered public service. Growing up on our small farm in New Mexico, we didn't have much money. But my family's journey taught me something important. In America, hard work and a good job is all you should need to experience the American dream. But for that to happen, we must ask ourselves if our economy can still deliver on that original American promise. There's good reason that we met here today rather than in Washington, D.C. Berryville sits right in the middle of Virginia's 10th congressional district. And while it's early, there's no doubt that this district and so many others are up for grabs in the 2018 midterms. But this won't be easy. And Democrats can't take anything for granted. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of work to do. Our nation's greatest strength is our people. Honest, hard-working people from all walks of life. We must respect the dignity of every person, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, or no matter who you voted for. Too many Americans have lost faith in our political system and in the economy. And today we're here in Berryville to begin to restore that faith, to talk about our plan to grow our economy and to deliver better jobs and wages for all Americans, and to invest in the skills and tools to build a better future. This means having an honest discussion of the challenges families still face across America. Compared to just a few years ago, over half of Democrat and swing voters do not feel that there's more opportunity for them. Nearly half of those voters say that a sudden $500 expense would be a serious blow to the family budget. 3 out of every 4 voters say their incomes are not keeping up with the cost of living. Well, that's not right. And the American people deserve a better deal, one that puts hard-working families first again. This means building an economy where people can pursue the dignity of a good-paying job. It means rewarding the small business owner for her hard work and entrepreneurship. It means skill training and investing in the future through apprenticeship programs and community colleges, as well as making 4-year college more affordable. It also means addressing what isn't working in our economy. We must close those tax loopholes so big corporations pay their fair share, and we must stop big corporations from monopolizing and stifling competition so consumers get more options at lower costs. We must crack down on those corporations that send jobs overseas. These are common sense principles and common sense priorities, and these are the things that the American people want us to do. On that small family farm, I'll tell you, growing up, Mom and Dad taught me that no job was too big or too small. And the same holds true in Congress. The American people want us to work to get things done. Now we can all agree what we stand for. Let's get it done. And I'll tell you what, you have a big treat before you as well today with all of our colleagues. One of my favorite U.S. senators as well, great champion out of working families and farmers across rural America out of the state of Minnesota, Senator Klobuchar.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Well, it is great to be here with all these strong leaders, and especially thank you, Senator Warner, for inviting us. I do remember at one point in your former job, Time Magazine declared you the best governor in the country. Is that right? And so I have always told him that he is welcome in Minnesota, where we have 10,000 lakes and plenty of water for him to walk on. It is good to be here, and it actually, just yesterday, I was with a family from Cambridge, Minnesota. And it's a little bit like Berryville, a place where people work hard just to get ahead. They care about their families, they care about their neighbors. And these twin girls I met One was named Maria, one Evelyn. They both played softball. One was the pitcher and one was the catcher, and they were identical twins. But there was one thing that was very different, and that is that one of them found out she had juvenile diabetes, right? So her mom goes to the doctor, they get all the help, and gradually over the years, the costs have gone up and up and up for the testing strips, for the insulin. And now we're in a situation where the cost of insulin has gone up 3 times over what it was just a few years ago. And that is not something the average American family can afford. So when one of the girls looked at me and said, "Will you tell our story?" I said, "Yes, I will. And not only that, I've got a group of people that have your back." So we are talking about that family, and we're talking about seniors like Kim Battern from Plymouth, Minnesota, where I grew up. She just retired. She keeps the pen injectors after she uses them. She's a diabetic because they have small amounts of insulin left, and she says it is just too precious to throw out. That shouldn't be happening in America. The prices of 4 out of the top 10 drugs in this country have gone up by 100% over the last 10 years. Now, it might be different if the wages had gone up 100% over the last 10 years, but they have not. So to bring these prices down, we need to raise competition. We have to bring in more generics. And yes, we have to unleash the bargaining power of 41 million seniors and let them negotiate less expensive prices under Medicare. We must do that. We need tough enforcement on price gouging and more transparency with price hikes. The American people want to know why they pay more for prescription drugs than any country in the world. How can that be when we have invented so many of these drugs, when we manufacture so many of these drugs? We are sick and tired of paying more than any country in the world, and it has to stop. Yeah. And we are seeing this lack of competition all across our economy, whether it is prescription drugs, whether it is cable bills, whether it is airfare, or even beer, right? Then we're getting serious when that happens. And so that's why I'm the ranking member of the Antitrust Subcommittee, and Elizabeth's going to be talking about this in a little bit, but we have to pass a stronger law so that companies just can't get away with murder, so that they can't merge and make things worse for the American people. And that's why we're going to be introducing a stronger standard under our antitrust laws so that we can bring competition and lower prices to the people of America. So, with that note, I'm excited to introduce someone who's also from the Midwest. And there's been a lot of talk about baseball. This woman actually plays it. She is a really strong women's softball player on the congressional team. She comes from Moline, Illinois, where her congressional district is, of course, located, which is, of course, the international headquarters of John Deere. Yeah. So Sherry Bustos is someone who knows a little bit about the Midwest and a lot about our country and how we move forward. Sherry Bustos of Illinois.
And by the way, Senator Klobuchar is our play-by-play announcer for our Congressional Women's Softball game, worth noting. Well, hello, Virginia. And hello, America. And Leader Pelosi, when you were talking about the Orioles hat, I see that out there, but I also see a DeKalb seed hat out there. And that's like my kind of peeps. I am Sherry Bustos, and I represent the 17th District of Illinois. It is 7,000 square miles. It is mostly rural. It is mostly blue-collar, and it is all along the Mississippi River. So way too many families that I represent understand the economy is not working for them. Some have worked for decades in manufacturing, only to spend their last days training the replacements who came over from China, and where their last job was to padlock their factory door. Others poured their hearts and their souls into Main Street businesses, only to see the greed of Wall Street get the better of them. And moms and dads across the heartland in regions like I represent worry whether they'll be able to see their grandkids grow up because their kids have had to move to big towns just to get a job. The truth is, across America, there are millions of hardworking men and women who have been left behind. They don't want a handout, and they don't want our sympathy. We all know that. They simply want government and corporations not to work against them. And we're here to say, we hear you, we agree with you, and we are ready to present a better deal. In the better deal that we offer, we will restore opportunity by helping 10 million Americans get good-paying, full-time jobs. We will do that in part, by doubling our investment in workforce training and in apprenticeships. And let me tell you why this is so important. About 2 years ago, I convened a group of manufacturers, all representing small and mid-sized companies. And I asked them, how many of you have jobs that you have open that you can't fill? Every single one of them raised their hands. So there are those opportunities, but we know that to be ready for the 21st century job, we need to have 21st century skills. And while there are lots of people ready and eager to take those jobs, they don't always know where they can go and get those skills. And you know what? We can solve that problem. One way is by connecting community colleges and technical schools with local employers. By having employers in the same room as these programs are developed, we'll create a skills pipeline to get our economy back on track. Not with low-paying part-time jobs, but with the kind of jobs that hardworking men and women can take home and realize that I can take my family on vacation again. I can buy that pickup truck that I like to buy every 5, 6, 7 years. And I can buy my kids not the shoes that they need, but the shoes that they want. We do that by connecting these workers with the better skills that lead to better jobs, that lead to better wages, and that in turn will lead to a better future for the hardworking families that we all represent. That is our better deal for America. Bringing back hope, restoring trust. And I know, the folks behind me know too, that we can do it. Thank you very much. And it is my distinct pleasure to elect somebody that probably each and every one of you know a little bit about, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Thank you.
Hello, hey. Hello, Virginia. Hello, Berryville. So we know why we're here today. We're here today because the economy is broken. Today, a tiny sliver of wealthy individuals and giant corporations hold the majority of this nation's wealth, while working families are struggling more and more just to make it day to day. Americans know that this economy is rigged in favor of billionaires and giant corporations, and rigged against everyone else. And it's not hard to see how this happened. In industry after industry, a handful of corporations have seized power in this country. Since the 2000s, the number of major U.S. airlines has dropped from 9 to 4. The 4 giants left standing now have nearly 80% of all airline seats. 2 giant corporations sell more than 70% of all of the beer in America. 5 health insurance giants now own more than 80% of the country's health insurance market. 3 giant drugstore chains suck in 99% of all pharmacy revenues in this country. 4 giant companies now run more than 80% of America's beef market. And the list goes on. This kind of concentration matters. It matters because giant corporations crush competition. They shut out small rivals and they kill young startups. This matters because giant corporations jack up prices and cut corners on quality. This matters because giant corporations put the squeeze on wages as profits have gone up wages for American workers have gone down. And this matters because many giant corporations don't win in marketplaces because they're better. They win because they are big. And most of all, this matters because giant corporations can swing their weight around Washington, accumulating massive political power, the kind of power that can capture our government and rig the system even more in their favor. Corporate influence over our government has gotten worse under the Trump administration, far worse. President Trump has stacked his administration with a who's who of big-time lobbyists, Wall Street bankers, and corporate executives. Now, America has faced this problem before, more than a century ago, when railroads and steel mills and oil companies grew to monopoly size. Congress passed antitrust laws and broke up those powerful corporations, and competition flourished in this country. But for decades now, government has slacked off enforcement of those laws, and the result has been bigger and bigger corporations with more and more power. Democrats are ready to take this challenge head on. That's why we're here. Head on. And that starts with leveling the playing field to make the economy and our political system work for working families. That's why we're here. So today, let's be specific. Democrats propose new policies to bust monopolies and restore competition in our markets. We want stronger enforcement of antitrust laws. You bet we do. We want tougher rules against anti-competitive mergers, tougher rules to tackle the problem of control over data, tougher rules on post-merger review. And we want a consumer competition advocate to make sure that someone besides the giant corporations get heard in Washington. Now, make no mistake, these are pro-market changes, the kind that Teddy Roosevelt advocated when he broke up the big trusts, the kind that anyone who believes in competitive markets, Democrat or Republican, should be able to agree on because they would make our markets healthier and more competitive. Let's face it, America is getting richer every year. But for working families to get a share of that prosperity that they're creating, we need some serious enforcement of competition laws. This is one step that Democrats are offering to take back our government, and it's a darn good step. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now I have the honor of introducing my friend and someone who is a warrior on behalf of working people, David Cicilline. Come on up, David. You're warmed up.
They're warmed up.
Okay.
Although Senator Warren and I were both surprised to hear all these sports references, there's no mention of the world champion New England Patriots or the Boston Red Sox. But I am delighted to be here with all of my colleagues and with all of you, and thank the residents of Berryville for welcoming us. If there is one word that sums up our agenda, it is spelled J-O-B. As you all know, a job is more than just a paycheck. It's about knowing that hard work is honored and valued. It's about being treated with dignity and respect, the dignity and respect that every single human being deserves. And it's about knowing you can take care of yourself and your family. When I was growing up in Rhode Island, folks knew that if they worked hard and played by the rules, life would be okay. They could buy a home. They could give their kids a better life than they had. They could save for a secure retirement with dignity and peace. But like many places around our country, that's not how it works anymore. The jewelry factories and textile mills that once gave my constituents the promise of a better future have been closed for decades. Wages haven't kept pace with inflation, and it's harder than ever to get ahead. People in my state and all across this country feel like the system is rigged against them. And you know what? It is. Our tax code rewards companies that ship jobs overseas. Millionaires and billionaires don't pay their fair share. Pensions are gone. Medicare is under attack. And while the corporate special interests are doing better than ever, everyday people are working 2 or even 3 jobs just to get by. It doesn't have to be this way. And when we take back Congress, a year from now, it's not going to be this way. We're going to help 10 million Americans find good-paying, full-time jobs. Under our plan, A Better Deal, America will once again value honest, hard work by investing in the American worker. We're going to address the economic challenges and the anxiety that folks are feeling in my district and all across this country. It starts with an aggressive, bold plan to rebuild and modernize our transportation infrastructure. Washington has ignored this problem for too long. Our roads, bridges, and airports were once the envy of the world, but that's not the case anymore. A better deal means that we'll put folks all across America back to work in good-paying jobs, fixing our bridges, our roads, our transportation networks, so they can be the best in the world again. It's time for us to think big. We built the Transcontinental Railroad. We built the interstate highway system. And under our plan, millions of Americans will find work building a new transportation network that's second to none. Next, we're going to invest in building a new manufacturing economy. We're going to start making things again in America. Manufacturing jobs have always offered the promise of a better future. The technology has advanced over the years, but these are the jobs that have always been essential for building the middle class. So we're going to double our investments in apprenticeships. We'll create new tax credits for employers to retrain their workers and pay them a living wage. And we'll work with the private sector, schools, and career and technical programs to build a new network of training opportunities for millions of Americans. And finally, we're going to make sure that working families are valued in America, that moms and dads can earn a living wage and still have the time that they need to help with homework or care for a sick child. That means fair work schedules, paid family leave, policies that support working families. In the weeks ahead, we'll have more to say about these policies and what we're going to do to get this work done on behalf of the American people. The American people here in Virginia and everywhere in our country deserve a government that is working for them. Americans have earned the right to send their kids to excellent schools, to live in safe communities, to have health care that protects them, and to live and retire with dignity. This agenda will make that happen. The American people have had enough broken promises to last a lifetime. We're going to deliver real results. We're going to give them a better deal with better jobs, better wages, and a better future. And it is now my great pleasure to introduce our host, someone you know well, the extraordinary Senator Warner.
Hey, hello Berryville. Hello Clark County. Hello Frederick County. Hey Winchester. Welcome all of you. Chuckles, you listen. Welcome to the Commonwealth, not the state. Welcome to the Commonwealth of Virginia. Anybody hot yet? Yeah. So I will be brief. And Amy, let me just say, echoing what you said, I've got a daughter with type 1 juvenile diabetic. I've seen those rising costs, and frankly, we do deserve that better deal in terms of prescription drug prices. Let's, we're here talking about what we're going to try to do as Democrats in Washington. But the truth is, in Virginia, we never get any time off. We have very important state elections this year, and we've got 2 great candidates for the House of Delegates, Wendy and Tia, right down here in front. And let's make sure we elect Ralph Northam as our next governor. Sometimes politics feels like it's always caught in the past. And frankly, a lot of the debate in Washington feels a little bit tired and stale at times. And what we're trying to offer here is a better deal that recognizes that a lot of the challenges we face in America today are no longer left versus right or liberal versus conservative, but it's future versus past. And the Democratic Party has always been at its best when we've been future-leaning. You know, the nature of everything is changing. Automation and technology dramatically transforming our workforce. My dad worked for the same company for 38 years. He never made a lot of money, but he had that security of a job and a set of benefits that allowed him through good times and bad to get through. The truth is, in 2017, virtually no one is going to work for the same job for 35 years. So we have to have an education system and a training system that realizes if you want to be a lifelong employee, you've got to be a lifelong learner. So let me just give you two quick ideas. First, why don't we have a tax code that would give the same kind of tax credit for those investments in R&D for people who will invest in human capital? Yes. A tax credit that says we will train and continue to upskill a workforce throughout their whole career to make sure that people can stay employed as they move from job to job. A second thing, let's acknowledge that, candidly, not everybody needs to go to a four-year college. The truth is, we have right now in Virginia 17,000 jobs in cybersecurity, half of which don't even need a four-year degree. So what we want to do is do new partnerships. Let me get some water here because I get dry now. Listening to so many politicians makes me dry. We need to have a partnership with community colleges and apprenticeship programs, and recognizing that we've got to have skills that will meet the jobs of the future. 17,000 unfilled cyber jobs, starting salary $88,000 apiece. Half of them don't need a four-year degree. So how we lean in to this new economy, this new future, is what this better deal is all about. We're going to have an opportunity over the coming weeks to lay out more ideas, to continue to frame this as not the old politics of the past, but a bold democratic agenda that leads into the future. And one of those great leaders who are leading us into the future is the next, and actually the cleanup hitter of this whole group, the great congressman from the city of New York, Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, good afternoon. I thank the great senator from the Commonwealth of Virginia for his tremendous leadership. I'm Hakeem Jeffries, and I'm from a small town up north, Brooklyn, New York. But whether you're from Brooklyn or Berryville, the zip codes may be different, but the issues are largely the same. We all understand that the American people deserve a better deal, better jobs, better wages, and a better future. Over the last 40 years, the productivity of the American worker has increased by more than 285%. But during that same period of time, wages have increased by less than 10%. The productivity gains of the American worker have not gone to the American worker. Instead, they have gone to the privileged few, to the wealthy and to the well-off, to the special interests. The American people deserve a better deal. Yeah. The American dream has always been about, if you work hard and play by the rules, you can be rewarded. But for far too many Americans, that fundamental contract has been broken. Working families, middle-class folks, senior citizens, the poor, the sick, the afflicted, people in urban America, suburban America, and rural America, increasingly left behind by an economy that works for the privileged few and not for all Americans. We deserve a better deal. For far too many Americans, wages have failed to keep up with the rate of inflation. For far too many Americans, wages have failed to keep up with the rising cost of living. For far too many Americans, wages have failed to keep up with our collective aspirations to provide a better future for our children and for our grandchildren. The American people deserve a better deal. Yeah. Democrats will work hard to aggressively tackle the persistent problem of wage stagnation. We will use the tax code not to benefit the wealthy and the well-off, but to incentivize and encourage small businesses and corporations to raise the wages and increase the pay of the American worker. We will break up monopolies that artificially suppress wages and keep the pay low of the American worker. And we will raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour and make sure that every single American can have a living wage that will provide them with the opportunity to raise their families in a comfortable fashion. Democrats will invest in education and job training, invest in transportation and infrastructure, invest in research and development, invest in technology and innovation, and invest in the American people. We will not rest until every single American across this great land has a better deal, better jobs, better wages, and a better future. God bless the United States of America. I yield to Leader Schumer and Leader Pelosi.
Good question. Nancy. Okay, we're ready for some questions. We'll take a few. Jerry.
Senator Schumer, 10 years ago you wrote a book in which you talked about the Democratic Party appealing to the middle class, but that appeal in that book wasn't strictly on economic issues. You talked about a 50% reduction in abortions, 50% reduction in illegal immigration. How has your point of view changed over time, and why are you not addressing any of those issues in this?
First, I'll tell you the good news and bad news about my book. The good news was Newt Gingrich, of all people in those days, said if Democrats followed Schumer's book, they'd be the majority party for a generation. The bad news about my book is Democrats didn't follow it, no one bought it, and I'll have plenty of free copies for anybody who wants it. We have focused on economic issues. We think that is what the American people are most yearning about. That doesn't mean we won't, in future months, discuss other issues, but the focus starts on economic issues. That's where the American people are hurting. That's what we most felt was missing in the past, in the last several elections, and we all take some of the blame of that. I certainly do. We got to get focus on economics, number one.
And this has been a product of listening and listening and listening to the American people, listening to our colleagues, the American people in the heartland of America, across America, the economic insecurity, the financial instability of America's families is undermining their future, our democracy, and that's why this focus is on the economy.
Right. It's what the American people are yearning for. Yes.
We agree the economy is in terrible shape, but the financial system is doing very well in terms of profits. I wonder why you don't go behind Glass-Steagall in a major way.
Okay.
It was Franklin Roosevelt's first piece of legislation. Okay. We're on the verge of a blowout that makes 2008 look minor.
Yep.
Why don't we enact Glass-Steagall?
Okay, we are going to talk about some of the issues dealing with Wall Street and short-termism and all these things in future months. Today we unveiled these three issues. Press people first, if I could. Yes. Well, we'd welcome our Republican colleagues joining us. We'd welcome them with open arms. And we think, you take an issue that we talked about that Elizabeth focused on. Adam Smith economics said we shouldn't have 3 or 4 big companies dominating. That's classic republicanism. We would welcome them joining us. Here's the problem. Their party has so been taken over by the wealthy, powerful, Koch brother-led special interests that many of them who would agree with us are afraid to even join us. But we hope, as a better deal resonates around America, and they see that their path, free up corporations, cut their taxes, get rid of all the protections to consumers and workers and the environment, fails, they may come join us. That's our hope.
Any of them, or will you wait for them to come to you?
Mike?
Well, let me just say on that score, we have had overtures made to and fro on the subject of rebuilding America, on investing in the infrastructure of our country. It has never been a partisan issue. We have always worked together. That is until they blocked what President Obama was trying to do in that regard. But we're not in a place of blocking, we're in a place of working together. And I said earlier about President Washington, he's cautioned against political parties who are at war with their own government. Does that sound familiar with the deconstruction of government that the Republicans are advocating? And part of that is to undermine our investments in the future. But we're hopeful and we're optimistic, and we always extend the hand of friendship.
Yes.
Campaign chairs as well. The extent to which this is sort of the political message going into 2018 for Democrat incumbents and people who might be running.
Okay, I'll call on the two campaign chairs, but this is not just for 2018. We are going to. The question is, will this help our 2018 candidates when they run? This is not simply aimed at 2018. This is what we feel America needs. And you will find in the House and in the Senate, we will be offering amendments. We will be having lots of different kinds of fora to spread the word, because this is what we think America needs. Now, if our Republicans don't come around and help us, as Nancy mentioned, yeah, I think that this will hurt them. Their being against things like this will hurt them in 2018, but that's not our sole focus at all. And if do one of our campaign chairs, Ben Ray?
Go ahead, and then I'll follow.
Look, all across the country when we're visiting with constituents, and I think you've heard it here today, voters, constituents want us to focus on them. They want us to understand where they are, and they want us to understand that their wages are not keeping up with the cost of living. And so the more people that are able to have that conversation with the American people will be in a stronger place in 2018. But today is about making sure that the entire country is doing better, not just now, but through 2018 and beyond. That's the conversation we're having with the American people, and that's what we'll continue to hear day in and day out.
Chris?
Yeah, let me emphasize, this is the result of people traveling to every parts of their states and districts, listening to our fellow Americans, and responding to the things that they say are most important to them. And also responding to the people who say, okay, you guys always talk about this stuff, but what are you actually going to do about it? As I said earlier, it's not enough to empathize or sympathize or analyze. You got to do something about it. You got to tell the American people, if they support our candidates, here's what we will do. So this is a response to the cries we're hearing from the American public, and we think that people are crying out for what we call a better deal for America.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Well, last word from the leader.
I just want to say one more thing, because I've been quoting presidents and honoring the founders of our country and the rest. President Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. He went on to say, with it, you can accomplish almost everything. Without it, practically nothing. And what we want to do with this is accomplish something for the American people. If the Republicans join us, all the better. If they have some good ideas, all the better. But the fact is, we can't wait for them. And so as we convey this message to the American people, listen to how they experience their concerns and what they want to hear as we create jobs, lower cost, and have a brighter future for people. Remember, it's not this isn't a political mission, although it will have a political benefit maybe, but hopefully the Republicans will join us as they understand when the public knows they hold elected officials accountable. Public sentiment is everything. Abraham Lincoln. Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Berryville. Every single
All right, man. Oh, God.
Party still on? Really nice. How are you doing? Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I know. Very nice.
Hi, thank you for coming. I like your dress. Very nice.
Get us back in the